Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, Wednesday afternoon edition. Let's do a midweek update. I haven't done one in a few weeks. The weather outside was frightful here on this last day of fall. It was frightful on Monday. If you watch the news, I don't watch the news, but if you do, a lot of New England, especially Maine and New Hampshire, have a lot of trees down, roads out, power out. I personally got lucky this storm. Typically, if the wind blows on a sunny day, I lose my power for 2 days. This time, I woke up Monday morning with no power, and it came back on by 10 o'clock in the morning, and it only flickered a few more times, and my generator didn't wear itself out this time. I pretty much wore it out over the last 10 years or so, but it's on demand. Generac works pretty good. I got a deal on it, of course, installed it myself. Typical MO. So yesterday, Monday I didn't even bother to work in the shop. It was raining too hard, and I figured I'd get out here, and the generator does not run the big shop here, so I use it as an excuse to take a day off. So Tuesday, yesterday, I was certainly eager to at least get this transmission case, TH350, clean. This transmission is out of a old C10. It's probably original to the truck. It's set in the desert Southwest with no engine in it and no torque converter for decades. I can't describe, when I get a transmission from New England, and I've had transmission cases from all over the country, never have I had, it has to be adobe, like they make mud houses out of, mud buildings. It's the only way I can describe trying to get the dirt off this transmission. I could scrape and scrape. It's like scraping undercoating. You turn around and it's right back where it was. I swear. I scraped for hours and it was still all brown and reddish brown. There's no way this thing is ever going to clean up, but I warmed up the parts washer, ran it for an hour and peeked in, and it looked pretty normal, pretty nice. The tail housing came, everything came acceptably clean. Then I can finish cleaning it a little bit and paint it up, and it's gonna be all right. But wow, I guess it was protective dirt, but I've never fought so hard to get something clean. Completely on the other side of the spectrum, one, it's unbelievable I have another TH350 to rebuild. I typically avoid them, but these are both street transmissions, a good use for something like this. This one is original to a 1979 10th anniversary. Is that silver anniversary? It was a silver car. Trans Am. All original. It's being restored at a local high-end restoration shop. This is how I picked it up. It is as clean. It's dry. They drained it. They cleaned it. They didn't get everything rusty cleaning. I don't know how they cleaned it. It is absolutely beautiful. I'm looking forward to working on this one. This sets the bar pretty high for cores. My biggest problem with TH350 transmissions is they're pretty much always wore out. They usually take a transmission and a half or two to make one. In both of these cases, I've only had one apart so far, but it is completely rebuildable, despite sitting outside with no torque converter in it. And the Trans Am one was running and driving, so it's probably not, hopefully, completely wiped out inside. It looks nice on the outside. Relatively low mileage car in good shape. So they should be good rebuildable cores. Well, one is and one should be. Speaking of unusual, this is an early BorgWarner T10. I picked it up a while back in a trade. I traded it away. I got it back in a trade. Wasn't gonna do much with it, but I've been messing around with shifters in my spare time because it's a hobby of mine, if you will. And all the years of making solid rods with rod ends, I've saved all the often new old stock linkage pieces where I have enough to assemble shifters. So I decided to take a fairly new but slightly used offset console type shifter and find the correct arms, and using my 8-inch hydraulic metal brake. I have the electric pump hooked to it with the foot control. I use my hand, but you know, it's a press brake style where you have a V. And in the past, I've had to heat rods and try to bend them without heating them. This is so slick. You just put it where you want it, push it down. You can control the ram. Long story short, you can make a set of rods with the right bends really easy. Now the funnest part is when you finally get to shift it. You never know if you're gonna like it. This one, brand new and tight, really close pattern to be expected with this style shifter. This one, brand new install kit, a well-used shifter. I don't like the feel of it. As soon as I tried it, I'm like, it's okay. It's like a pair of shoes that don't fit. This one, as soon as I try it, it's like an old pair of slippers that just fit your feet, but you never wore them before. This thing is so buttery smooth. The detent, when you go second to third, it just pops right over. It is really nice. It makes you want to drive it. Now, the transmission itself is an oddball, of course, because I have it. Not a lot of information available for the early T10s. We're talking 60 to 63-ish, maybe 59 to 63. Don't quote me on the years, but they only used it at the beginning of the 60s before they went to the Muncies. So this is an early T10, or just a T10 is all it's called. And all the automakers use them, but they're brand specific. The GM one won't fit a Ford and so forth. And then in 73, late 73, 1974, they went to a Super T10. So the transmissions have a lot of similarities, but this particular one is odd. It has to be built from parts. Now somebody's overhauled it. Again, nice job. They didn't go at it with a caulking gun full of silicone. It actually has real gaskets, and it seemingly has probably not been run. It has one groove on the input shaft, the 10 spline input, which is normal. Should be a wide ratio, 250-ish first gear. I'm a wide ratio person, so that's good. What is odd about it is by 1964, they claim some rare Pontiacs and maybe even a Buick used this transmission, but it would have had an aluminum case. The last cast case in Corvettes and whatnot were 1962. I'm having trouble reading the year in the case, but I think the case might be a 62. The tail housings is June 25th, 1964. So that's a very late tail housing. And what makes this particularly odd is a wide ratio 250 first gear, 10 spline input transmission up until 63 or 4 had a 16 spline output shaft instead of what this has, the 27 spline, same as a TH350 and Power Glide. So from a user perspective, this will bolt right in place of this. It's slightly heavier. They claim the cast iron cases were the go-to because the aluminum cases were kind of flexible. These are not strong transmissions. Good for 300 or 400 horsepower, which is still pretty healthy. It'd be perfect for a hot rod, and the way it shifts makes you want to build a whole car around it. So that's kind of cool. I stopped by my local speed shop the other day, Portland Speed. It's been in Portland, Maine for 40 plus years. I stopped by because he's having a going out of business sale. It makes me sad. Sadder because it's my fault, among other people, for falling into the convenience of having stuff delivered to your door. I know that the owner was offering internet prices a few years ago. In the past, if you were shopping in a tax-free state, you might save money on tax, but they changed all that. If you order online, you're paying tax anyway. There was no reduction in price there. And I could have easily fit it in my schedule or scheduled it different to stop by every now and then. I buy a lot of parts. Now he's out of business, or he's gonna be. And I feel really bad about it, being part of the problem. There's nothing I can do now. But if you have a local speed shop, I hope you go visit them, support them. But anyway, he has stuff spread everywhere. We've made a couple trips, my buddy Charlie and I, and the owner posts things on Facebook. We're friends on Facebook. I've known him for a long time. He had a Hayes and a McLeod. That's how I pronounce it anyway. It's McLeod, McLeod. A GM 12-inch pressure plate. He had a Hayes 12-inch pressure plate. I told him I'd buy both of them, but as soon as I texted him, somebody else had beat me to the Hayes, so I got the McLeod. I really only needed one, but again, it was an excellent deal. It was just a pressure plate, brand new, never been used. The reason I'm interested in a 12-inch clutch, now the transmissions we were just looking at, they'd be better off suited with a 10.5 and probably no more than an 11-inch clutch. The more inertia, more stress you put on the transmission, well, you know what's going to happen. But I'm just looking for, again, if I was to put that early T10 in a hot rod, to have an old clutch to hook it up, and let's just say I wanted to put it behind an LS motor. Well, I've done a video on how to do that, but in short, the LS motor crankshaft is 0.400 shorter, except for a rare 4.8 and a 6.0 around before the year 2000. But you cannot use Camaro Firebird or Corvette. They designed the transmission to use new specs, not the traditional GM length input shaft and everything else. But in the trucks, they never changed the transmission, much like the 4L80E has its own flex plate and spacer and uses legacy spacing torque converter. So did the standard transmission in the Silverado truck until they got rid of the clutch pedal in 2007-ish. But that flywheel takes into account the 0.400 you need to gain. And these flywheels, imported, are $79. So, and not SFI rated, obviously. I don't run anything that's not in a scatter shield. And again, it's in a hot rod. I don't run an aluminum bell housing in anything. No way. Because you might want to do some spirited driving and you ought to have a scatter shield in it. Now, I say that I haven't swapped over my Street 55 yet, but it's on the list of things to do. So I putt around like an old man until I do. So this flywheel will allow you can bolt it right to the LS with the proper flywheel bolts, and you can put any GM clutch on it, almost, and you can slide with the proper pilot bearing, slide a Legacy, okay, I'm having a stroke here, Legacy length, GM 3-speed, 4-speed transmission, whatever, into your traditional Chevy bell housing, and everything hooks up. It's awesome. It's cheap. The problem with this style flywheel, you buy an aftermarket flywheel, Hayes, McLeod, anybody's, the center hole is smaller. Why this has this monstrosity of a hole, 8 inches wide, if they had made it, see where this ridge is, if they'd made this machine surface in further, you could run a 10.5, 11, and a 12-inch clutch. Instead, even a 12-inch disc overhangs this edge by an 1/8 inch or so. So the disc is going to wear funny. I ordered a Silverado clutch disc for this vintage, and they sent me the wrong one. So when I get that, that's why I was happy. I found a nice 12-inch pressure plate. This is still a $450 pressure plate if you could get it. The number's still good. And I'm going to put it on this cheap flywheel probably with a 12-inch disc and run it. So I guess that's it for today. I'm still sad about the speed shop. And on a happy note, I like to end on that. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon. Looks like we're going to have a green Christmas. I only remember a few in my lifetime, and I like them. We had snow that hung on the trees for a week. That was pretty. I guess it could have been timed different, but I'm okay with a green Christmas. I remember one as a kid. It was actually warm at the time too, which is rare in Maine, on December 24th and 5th. And I was playing outside. It's a great memory. All the other snowy Christmases, not so much. So that's just, I have fond winter memories. I enjoy all 4 seasons. I still live in Maine. I didn't move anywhere else. And yeah, so Merry Christmas, if I don't talk to you before then, and take care. But wait, there's more. If you're going to put your traditional GM pressure plate onto this late model metric flywheel, be aware, for instance, this McLeod pressure plate came with nice shouldered special 3/8 bolts. They take a 7/16 socket, 3/8 course. They fit the model this is intended for. So your traditional small and big block Chevy, not the LS. LS stuff is metric. The bolt holes here are metric. This is a metric M10 1.5. It threads right in. Hold the phone. If, and I unfortunately see this happen a lot, I've had LS engines show up on engine cranes and engine stands with 3/8 16 bolts in them. Because the 3/8 16 will thread in as well. It's not tight, but if you're not paying attention or you're not familiar with how a thread should feel, you can make a mistake. How do you know which one it takes? Well, I can tell you how. Go ahead and thread in your M10 1.5 and it goes in. This is a 3/8 16 nut. You cannot put an M10 1.5 in a 3/8 16 thread, but the 3/8 16 will go in the M10 1.5. So that's how you know. Try it with the metric bolt. If it goes in, it's not 3/8 16.